concerns. Is there anybody that would like to speak on an item that is not already on the agenda? If so, we ask you try and limit it to 3 minutes.
My name's Lucy Cameron, and I live in rural Danbury. Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. DeWitt, for speaking with me earlier today. Last week I was here, and one of the things that I wanted to address about the wind turbines was my concern with the effort that was made to reach the rural community. I asked Mr. Gleiser if he reached out to the rural newspapers, and he said that he had. The Sergeant Bluff Advocate, the Mobile Record, and the Danbury Review. And I guess I took the time to contact those 3 newspapers after last week's meeting, and none of them had any recollection of being contacted by him so that citizens could know about those public meetings that took place at the end of June and early July. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, Mr. Gleiser. I ask him to stay and address that, please.
Yeah. David Gleiser, Director of Community Economic Development. Ms. Cameron's right. I did misspeak during the public hearing last week when she asked. My administrative staff reminded me the next day that our department publishes our legal notices in the Sioux City Journal due to the frequency of the small town papers not publishing enough. I know the Board of Supervisors does publish the minutes of of your board meetings in all the papers, but to her point, she is correct, and I apologize for the inaccuracy.
Then did we do anything improper or?
No, it was still still published in the Sioux City Journal, which is the publication with the largest circulation in the region. So, as terms of a violation of public notice, I don't believe we had an issue.
Do you know of anything, Mr. Whitman, that requires us to post in every paper around, or are you aware, or can you?
I'd have to look into it. I think that we have 3 designated county newspapers, so typically a notice would go in all of them. So I guess I'd want to look further into that.
To your knowledge, did you do anything that wasn't legal or proper by only posting in the journal that you know of?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Apologies. I apologize, Ms. Cameron. I didn't mean to misinterpret or lie to you. So it was just an accidental mistake, and I do apologize.
Okay.
You bet. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, I chatted with her around noontime today, and I mentioned that moving forward, we will just make sure we do that, trying to abide as best as we can by publishing dates on the smaller papers.
Yes.
So when you do that, Mr. Woodman, can you make sure, do we have to post in any other papers besides our own county? No.
No, there's nothing outside of the county.
It was my understanding that of the 3 county newspapers of record, I was under the impression that 1 was sufficient, but if that's not the case, I'll make sure that we correct that. And, Ms. Cameron has been very engaged in our process. I've been emailing her our materials that have been presented throughout the process. At one point, I've tried to recruit her on our Volunteer Zoning Commission and Board of Adjustment. So I just want to be sincere and let you know that I do appreciate your engagement, and I heard you loud and clear as far as your comments made throughout the process and, the importance of rural stakeholder engagement. So going forward, I can assure you that will be a top consideration of mine, I promise.
Good, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
Just to wrap up, I have been somewhat disappointed I think that there should have been more rural engagement in the development of the ordinance. I do think that not only our rural people, but all of Woodbury County residents are stakeholders, not just the rural energy company or the renewable energy companies and the conservation community, which were the 2 that I heard mentioned the most. So I think that the people that live in Woodbury County are stakeholders as well. So I look forward to having more engagement, everybody that lives in Woodbury County going forward. and I appreciate you working to put notices of any possible construction in the local newspapers, so we know about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
point taken, thank you.
I really think you ought to consider the zoning commission. I think there's probably going to be openings from what I saw.
Karen, just to clarify, there are 3 official newspapers, and that's the Sioux City Journal, the Advocate, and the Mobile Record. And that every year you have to do that, right? To become the official records, and they have to look at their circulation, and those are the newspapers that we have to publish in. As far as Mr. Gleiser and the zoning, I don't know if there are different rules and regulations that he has to go by, but there are 3 papers, 3 official papers, and every year we go through that process, and that's where the publications occur.
Okay, thank you.
But you will publish in the Danbury Review as well, as discussed?
Well, if they're not an official paper, or, I mean, unless we can get something changed to where they are considered an official paper or an official publication, I suppose.
Is that because they don't publish the minutes, or what makes an official paper?
Can you come up here, please?
Adam Cameron, Danbury. What makes an official paper?
We're required by law to publish because of the size of our county, we're required to publish in those 3 newspapers of widest circulation. And each year they submit to the county the number of subscribers that they have, correct, Karen? So that's how we determine which newspapers to publish in. It doesn't prevent us from sending out press releases and things of that nature, but they're not required to publish. Those newspapers, the other ones are not required to publish those.
Okay. So could we make a request that it is something as big as the windmill issue is published as widespread as could be, or is it just going to be?
Mr. Gleiser, can you explain what your publication requirements are and what your intent is?
So for my department, I was reminded by my staff that we publish our legal notices in the Sioux City Journal, and then anything else that we publicize in terms of a press release or features or any things that we send out to the media, we try to send and include to all newspapers and media outlets. That's the practice of my department. As far as the legal requirements of noticing them, it was my understanding that as long as we were publishing a legal notice in at least one, in the largest publication, circulation publication in our jurisdiction, that would be sufficient. Since I took over the zoning department, I've been actually having my department do those legal notices instead of the board office. And so that's basically what I've been doing since I've been, in the department, publishing them in the journal.
Okay. So what I'll tell the board is that we'll review that with the county attorney's office to see if you're meeting those requirements. But I know that we're required to publish it in the minutes in those 3 newspapers that are official.
Yeah, same as the Board of Supervisors. I don't believe the supervisors publish legal notices in all 3 papers. I know that you publish your minutes in all 3 papers. But as far as a notice for a public hearing, basically for the public hearing, it's been my understanding is to do with the Sioux City Journal.
Do you ever do that, Karen?
There's some things that we publish in all 3 papers, but not everything is published.
Okay.
So I did find the code section on that, and I wanted to refer to it before I spoke definitively on it. But the board has the official newspapers of the county. There's 3 of those based on the size of Woodbury County. There's a formula for determining who those are. Basically, the newspapers have to submit registration lists or subscriber lists and they determine that. And then the official proceedings of the board are published in the official newspapers. But the other types of hearings, such as zoning or other legal notices, it's a different code section, and it says that it can be published in one or more newspapers of general circulation. So a single newspaper would meet that requirement. The board could choose to do more. One thing about the formal legal notices, usually it's quite pricey to publish those in the paper, and it's such, I mean, I don't know who reads the legal sections of the newspaper in their free time, but it's a lot of small print, and I think there's other ways of accessing that, you know, whether it be online, that may be more readily available to people. But I suppose the board, if they wanted to, they could go above and beyond that one newspaper requirement, but one newspaper does meet it for standard notice.
The only thing I would like to add is that logistically, when you're trying to schedule these, sometimes you run an issue with their publication deadlines and submission dates and those sorts of things. And the Journal recently changed how they accept notices. They don't deliver on Mondays, and so that has changed how our office has to deal with publishing legal notices with them. And so I guess I would just say that the Journal has been the one that's probably the easiest or most consistent one that we use. And so that's basically why I've chosen.
Well, I know that we've had to postpone or plan meetings to a later date just to accommodate the publishing. I
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
that, especially on some of our LEC items and so forth, so.
Yeah. But so, you know, I guess I would just want to just, for the record, you know, the intent has never been to not provide access to county residents to come and speak on issues such as the wind turbine. But going forward, I will be sure to do everything I can to try to make sure that those notices are in these rural newspapers, and, you know, we can figure that out, so.
Mr. Chair, does anyone remember the, what was published for the last ordinance? I think that was the ATV
That was
ordinance.
a resolution.
It was a resolution? Okay, because we don't do many ordinances. I thought that was an ordinance.
You know, many times, if you put it in the form of a press release, they'll print it for nothing.
Sure. And that was my comment, if they, you know, if they choose to print, and so, but you're right, Supervisor Monson. And, you know, that was one of the things that I did, you know, quickly after the last public hearing, is we published a press release and submitted it to all local print media in the region to discuss, you know, the board's actions on the wind turbine. So I just, you know, for the record, I will own that mistake. I apologize to Ms. Cameron. I apologize to the residents of the county. It was an error on my part, but I understand the sentiments expressed, and we'll be sure to do everything that we can to make sure that this information is spread far and wide, loud and clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Regarding the Journal, I just wanted to say, as someone my age or younger, you know, nothing like this makes it to your phone. And just a comment, you know, we don't get the hard copy of the Sioux State Journal, and we would never see anything like these notices. It's not like you can look on the online version of the Journal and get this. I don't think you can. It's strictly articles, so I would just say that. And I would add that, you know, you guys voted based on what you thought was public notice and very little public response on this topic. And what you're talking about is formalities of notice, but you went ahead and voted, and you're not going to undo that likely. So it's just a comment that everything moved forward, and it seems like it's going to continue to move forward based on what he said about notifying the public, which wasn't done. Thank you.
We are at a set time for our Building Services, Kenny Schmitz.
Should we move the agenda real quick? I'll move the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Monson, approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes. You there, Justin?
Aye, yeah, excuse me.
5-0. We are to set time for Building Services, and item 8A is receive competitive bids relating to the 28th Street development.
Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. We opened bids for the 28th Street development last week with the assistance of the Auditor's Office and recorded those. I'd like to read those for you today and have you receive them. We got 3 bids. Shane Albrecht will hand handouts to you that have the numbers on them. Our first bidder was Sioux City Engineering. They included their bid bond and
I'll move to receive these.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Monson to receive the bids from Building Services. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
We received 3 bids for the project. The first from Sioux City Engineering. They included their bid bond, and their addenda was acknowledged. Their base bid for construction was $2,689,603.50. On bid alternate number 1, bid alternate number 1 is to remove curbs, gutters, and storm sewer. There was a deduct of $235,280. Bid alternate 2, which is mill and overlay from Highway 75 to the mobile home park, is an add of $104,560.20.
What kind of overlay?
I'm sorry?
What was that alternate?
Mill and overlay from Highway 75 to the mobile home park. And bid alternate 3 is asphalt instead of concrete, and that is a deduct of $67,824.40, $67,824.40. The next bid was received by Rprp Contractors Llc. They included their bid bond, and their addenda was acknowledged. Their base bid was $3,258,735.86. 3258735.86. Their bid alternate number 1 was a deduct of $525,194.61. $525,194.61. Bid alternate 2 was an add of $101,826.60. $101,826.60. And bid alternate 3 was a deduct of $44,952.90, $44,952.90. And the last and third company was Surfco LLC. Their bid bond was included and their addenda was acknowledged. Their base bid was $3,164,027.40. Their bid alternate number 1, deduct, was $458,523.95, $458,523.95. Their bid alternate 2 was an add of $119,595, $119,595. And bid alternate 3 was a deduct of $534.50, $534.50. I'm going to call upon Shane Albrecht with the Baker Group to come up, and I'd ask him to explain a little bit about the bids. Part of those bids were city-requested items, and our fiber optic installation, and some additional costs we recently received from Mid-American on additional gas main costs. And so Shane, would you come up and speak to those, please?
I have a question.
Yes.
The base bid construction cost already has the other three columns in it?
That's not the case.
No.
So you have to subtract and add those other three lines?
Depending on which alternates you go with.
Depending
Okay.
on which alternates you pick.
Yeah, so
Okay.
those will be choices that
So-
the board will have to.
Has the city engineer kind of given recommendations on what they would like on those three?
Yes. So,
We've got to talk through that in more depth with them, but somewhat, yes. Go ahead.
so bid alternate number 3, is just crossed out. It's not an option because there was an error on bid alternate number 3. So the base bid project is concrete, okay?
So it's to a certain depth and they didn't go 2 inches deeper with asphalt?
Yes.
Okay.
So the asphalt, the problem was, there's only 6, they're replacing 7 inches of concrete with 6 inches of asphalt instead of 8
insufficient,
inches. So it's insufficient. So bid alternate 3 is just crossed out. It's not appropriate, okay? City requested items. So the city has some things that they requested. So we had to add 7 inches of concrete pavement for an eastbound turn lane for Mid-American. So we've got that broke out in a line item, so the city will reimburse, they'll bill directly through to Mid-American. We had to add a 4-inch water main for Mid-American as well to this project. So that's another line item that we have broke out, so we can, we had to add 275 feet of curb and gutter for Mid-American. We have the earthwork that had to be done for the extra Mid-American stuff, and some extra fill that had to be done for the Mid-American stuff, as well as some, a couple 4-foot manholes that we had to put in for Mid-American. Again, it's a line item there. Also, 10-inch sewer for Mid-American. Fiber optic that we ran from where the LEC site will be out to where Mid-American will go. And some fiber optic handholds to be able to make sure they could access that stuff. So all that stuff, when you put that all together, it comes up with, off the base bid, there is $225,671 in a number, $225,671, that is just city requested items because of Mid-American that we'll be able to take off of that, and the city will have to, will reimburse the county for that cost. Our fiber optic cost was $132,492.50 on here for what the county's portion of the fiber optic was. Again, that's $132,492.50. And the 2080 agreement, if you remember, excluded, the city wanted nothing to do with the fiber, so that was excluded in the 2080, so that's, was always going to be the county's cost. So, unfortunately, the jail, or fortunately, isn't going to use as many BTUs of gas as what was originally thought. It's actually about half. So that, unfortunately, that costs us an extra $26,004.67 because Mid-American now wants you to pay more, instead of $49,000, they now want us to pay $75,000 for the gas line to run out there. Anyway, that number turns out to be $2,357,444.67. That's what the number would need to be, which is
You're talking the base number now.
base number. When you minus off, this is what, of the 2.8 that we originally had to do this minus engineering costs. The target we had was just a little bit over 2.3 million, so we're basically within, I think, $31,000 of being right on budget. We're about $31,000 over, and of that, 26,000 is because of the additional gas costs. So with numbers, this actually came in really close to our budget. So it was really good news.
So yes, it's looking like Sioux City Engineering is the low bid. Again, we're very happy with the prices that came in, or the bids that we received. The one, I guess the one item that we're probably not overjoyed about is the additional $26,400 of Mid-American charges. However, the bids, we believe, were favorable, so, thank you.
That's why that guy from Mid-American isn't here this week.
But they're also paying a big chunk of that for their portion of it, so I think we're getting a better deal, and they're getting a better deal by having it all on the same project, so. At the end, we're probably a wash.
Right.
So this takes us from where to where?
This takes us, the next.
Highway 75, there's an overlay.
Well, if we accept bid alternate 2.
Okay.
Yes.
So then the base here is from the trailer court up
Yes,
to the bypass.
yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Shane, if you'd like to speak to that. Shane's got some other facts about the fiber installation.
So, because of everything else that came back to us just before this project bid, so I could just run one conduit out there. We left it in that it's up to 4 duct conduits, so right now, the county has that, but also has the ability then to either lease or to sell off to Fibercom or whatever, 2 more conduit ducts. It looks like there's some expansion that's gonna be going on out there. So you will actually be the ones that own the duct that's in that thing, so then they will have to come to you for leasing out the space to get fiber out to. It looks like Lieber's gonna have a new development out there and stuff like that, so to get that fiber out there, you will actually own a conduit that has at least 2, if not 3 spares.
I would say these are actually quite favorable, you know, with all things considered economically in the world. It's very, very nice to be this close, so.
Yeah, I agree. The next steps for this is we're going to have a meeting with Gordon Fair. Make sure that we have all of the city items and Mid-American items requested sorted out and have the correct actual dollar amounts that are agreed to hammered out, so there's no misconception about what that will be. And this is supposed to go to the city council for approval on the 26th, and then it'll return to this board on the 27th, hopefully to approve the lowest competitive bidder.
So we still need to vote on approving the bid today.
You received the bid
We
now.
received it.
Now the next one is set that time.
Oh, okay.
I kind of like this process. We get it before we have to vote on it.
Yes, gives you some time to think about it.
Used to be, the city council already voted on it, and they say, oh, here, now it's your turn.
I'll move to approve July 27 at 4:45 to award the bid for the 28th Street Development Project.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Shane? All right. Consent agenda, items 3 through 6 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3 is approval of the minutes of the July 6 meeting. 4, approval of claims. 5, board administration, approval of lifting the tax suspension for initials KR. Item 6 is human resources, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. And I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 7, Williams and Company, discuss and receive the Woodbury County's certified annual financial report for FY 2020.
Mr. Peters, you've changed.
Just a little bit. Well, he's pretty much retired now.
Is he really?
Working just a little bit and pretty much has the summer off, and then he'll be back this fall to do a little bit of tax planning. But yeah, he's pretty much done now. So, but I'm Chad. I presented last year as well. Just kind of go through the June 30, 2020 audit. Realize that you guys just ended your fiscal year 21, that COVID and everything, that we did all of our auditing remote this year. And then also there were still some aspects of the software conversion that were new to us, like for last year, all the taxes, we still went off of the old software. So now this year, this audit was all new software. So there's some new reports and a few issues that we had to work through, but we got to work through, and we think that the software now is pretty much right where it needs to be. So I expect this year, FY21, to go a lot smoother. It's quite the project the last couple of years with the software conversion, but I think it was all still the right decision, and I really like the new software and getting reports out of there, and I think it's easier to audit, and there's a lot more accountability with the new software. So, just kind of flip through some of these pages here. We'll just start right on page 1. This is the letter of transmittal that basically management kind of goes through and is able to kind of say what's happening within that county, economically, and all the different good things that's happening there. So just a little bit of narrative reading there. Starting on page 11 is our auditor's opinion. Just basically in the first paragraph of the auditor's responsibility, it says that our responsibility is to express opinions on these financial statements based on our audit. We conducted the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America and the standards applicable to financial audits contained in governmental auditing standards. So that's the standards that we have to abide by. It's state law that all governments have to be audited in accordance with government auditing standards. So that's a little bit higher standard than the typical for-profit business. Next part I want to point out is on page 12 on the very top. Opinions. It says that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So that's the clean opinion that you guys want, that there was nothing that really came to us that these financial statements are materially correct in our opinion. Page 14 is the management discussion analysis, that there's just some good comparative information between 2020 and 2019 that you can kind of flip through and take a look at. Page 22 is the statement of net position. Basically, this is a full accrual accounting. You can't make any management decisions from it. It's a 10,000 foot level. It basically shows what you own and what you owe. But again, no management decisions really can be made from that. Page 23 and 24, statement of activities are the income statement at the full accrual level. Page 25 and 26 is the start of the fund level statements, that the larger funds are shown in the front, and then all the smaller funds are grouped in the other governmental funds column, but they're shown individually in the back of the report. One thing that we always like to point out is the number of days in unassigned fund balance for the general fund And if you take the 5.9 million and divide it by the expenses and get it into a number of days, that the county had 62 days of fund balance. So basically that means that the county could operate for 62 days without needing any additional resources. And that was up from 57 days in 2019. And that's pretty much right where we like it. Anywhere between 60 and 120 days or so is kind of where we like it. So you guys are sitting fine there. Page 28 is the income statement for the major funds. Then page 35 is the start of the notes to the financial statements. So there's a lot of detail here that support all the numbers in the financial statements that if you want additional support for anything, you can find it in the notes. Kind of skip a few pages, and starting on page 62 is the non-major, all the smaller funds, the individual funds statements for those smaller funds, where they were grouped just into one column in the front. So you got a few pages there. Skip to page 91, and this is just the start of the statistical section that we show 10 years worth of different statistics that kind of help show a trend, and so that's really good information. I think there's roughly about 20 different tables there that you can always go and take a look at different trend analysis. Starting on page 116 is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And so if you look at page 118 at the county and Siouxland District Health combined, because since they're a component unit of the county, it's reported as one, had about $2.5 million in federal assistance in FY20. I'm assuming that's probably only gonna increase with all the COVID money that's coming out here. I know that county has probably received the first share of the last stimulus, I believe, but so that's probably only gonna increase over the next couple of years. Page 120 is just a report that we got an understanding of the internal controls, that we don't report on the internal controls, but we have to gain an understanding of the internal controls, and that's what that report states. And then also for any major program, so the grants, there was 2 major programs that we had to test that were large enough for us to have to test, and for each one of them, page 122 says that we gain an understanding and then tested the internal controls on those 2 grants. And then page 124 is the start of our schedule of findings, question cost. For schedule of findings, we just had, we had the journal entry finding that we have every year, that 95% of our clients have this finding, because as soon as you have one entry, then you have this finding, and nobody's perfect, so that's nothing to be too concerned about. And then we had another finding, just that we made some adjustments to the schedule of federal awards. Basically, it was because of some FEMA-related dollars, that FEMA is kind of a tricky program on when to report those dollars on that schedule, and so we made some adjustments to that schedule. Otherwise, I think that's probably all that I have for you. Is there any questions?
So this is kind of like in years past, notes.
Like what?
This findings.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That's the old notes.
The old note, essentially notes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And like I said, that I'm not too concerned with the ones that you guys have, that they said with FEMA, that one's pretty common, just because because that one's a little bit of a trickier program and how that has to be reported, and the journal entries, so as soon as you have one journal entry, you have to stick that one in there. So, I know with the prior years, when we had the two softwares, we used to have probably 2 or 3 findings related to that, because we found some reconciliation errors, but now with just the one software, those all went away.
I'd move to accept this clean financial report.
Second?
Motion
Receive.
by Monson, second by Mr. Young. Do we have any other questions for Chad? Looks like you're getting off easy.
Looks like it, yep. Sounds
All,
like it.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Got kind of a flirtle from Mr. Wright, it sounds like, but passes 5-0. Thank you, Chad. Secondary roads. Receive bids for replacement of Bridge 0102 and return them to the county engineer for review and recommendation. It's going to take 2 of them to do that this evening.
Should have named this bridge Q102 and got a corporate sponsorship.
I think we have a Q102 out there already.
Oh, we do.
Don't give him ideas, Mark.
I'll try not to. We have one bid from Dixon Construction in Correctionville, Iowa. This is for a box culvert to replace the existing bridge. Total bid, $335,988.40. 335,988.40.
Do you need to take this back and review it?
I would like to take it back and review it since it is above estimate for projects. We have heard about increases in project costs. I think our last letting was back prior to January 1, if I remember right.
One of the things is the steel price.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got 25,000 pounds of reinforcing steel that's gonna be up, 40%. Yeah, so.
We would just like to look and see what current prices through a DOT bidding are. Again, this is our first one of this fiscal year, and so I would appreciate if the board would pass a motion to receive the bid and return to the county engineer for review and recommendation.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Radig, second by Monson to receive and return to county engineer for review and recommendation. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Must be eating. All those opposed say nay. Should we go 5-0 there, Pat, or? And there's no need to go with 9B then?
That's correct, yes.
So 9B is of no consequence. Thank you very much.
And I had one item here. 2 weeks ago, the board approved quitclaim deeds. We found a typographical error on one of them, and I'm requesting that the board chair and county auditor re-sign corrected deed.
Okay. Does that need to be received or anything, Mr. Gill?
Ministerial.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any reports on, that was it, wasn't it? We got everything covered going backwards and, reports on committee meetings.
None.
Mr. Young?
Chairman DeWitt gave me this letter from Sioux City regarding a voluntary annexation, requesting a board member's presence. Regards the area of the Highway 75, Highway 20 interchange. So I'm okay attending on Thursday if, well, of course, this letter is dated July 7th, 2012. So I'm just gonna assume they meant 2021 or else getting this pretty late. The said meeting is on Thursday, July 15th at 2 a.m. at Sioux City City Hall,
PM?
2 a.m. It says it right here.
2 a.m., all right.
So I'm gonna go, and if it's not there, I'm gonna come back at 2 p.m.
You're gonna turn in for overtime, aren't you?
Just in case
Yeah.
they're wrong on that. So that's
And
that.
and for the record, I did ask Mr. Young politely if he would be interested in doing that.
And I
You
said,
probably didn't want to go at 2 a.m.
I did not. I did not. Never mind. Anything else?
yes, I also attended the National Association of Counties Annual Conference, technically in Prince George's County, Maryland. Did not attend the whole thing, or else if I attended the last day, I might not be here today, but I did want to attend the first because there were some breakout sessions on ARPA funds and related specifically to criminal justice and jails, which is very relevant to us. The conference was, they say, normally takes 3 years to plan, and this one took 3 months, and so there was some unfortunate setup on those meetups, which was the breakout sessions were essentially in the corner of a very loud exhibit hall. And the speakers moderating the group discussion could not be heard by more than one person at a time, pretty much, gathered in a circle. And so that was the main complaint of the entire conference, I think. And so unfortunately, no one could hear anybody. And I just talked to other county officials in my area that are dealing with the same issues from Mississippi, North Carolina, Arkansas. Seems to be a common question. Some of them have the question on courthouses, which is a lot more risky of an endeavor than justice centers. But a lot of them were related to, now that this money's coming, can we use it for this? We are in a much stronger, more conservative position, I think, in asking for this because this is something we had already identified as helping these different issues, and we can point to the cost increases specifically due to the pandemic instead of an after-the-fact sort of a request. And so a lot of them had been talking just like we have, and their county attorney's offices have been doing the same thing, trying to get answers. Treasury was not there. I really had higher hopes for that, I'll be honest.
They didn't show up, huh?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
FEMA was there, but they couldn't really answer Treasury questions. Obviously, the comment period is still open until the final rule comes out, and so there's probably a lot of entities unwilling to make concrete statements until then. But there's a lot of people in our same boat. It's interesting. I think we're definitely on the, if they're going to approve a certain number of them, we're definitely at the top because of how it's structured on our side. We have a game plan, we have different things identified, and so that's a positive. Beyond that, heard from Vice President Harris down to Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg. Broadband is the number one thing for this administration, it seems like. The comment was made from the Vice President, half of the counties are too slow. More funding's coming down from that. Pelosi spoke, Nancy Pelosi, and said $65 billion is coming for broadband, $40 billion for rural, and it's not enough. And this is from coming legislation, not only the infrastructure bill, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. So I would anticipate a lot of focus on rural broadband. That was definitely the focus there. I learned about dark store theory as far as property taxes. That was interesting. Heard from Isabella Guzman, the administrator of the SBA. Heard from Gene Sperling, the American Rescue Plan coordinator with the White House. Talked mostly about the child tax credit being a positive. Concerns about the eviction moratorium ending at the end of this month. And noted $45 billion is allocated for paying back rent in coming legislation. Also heard from HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge, and honestly, literally the only point I gathered from that was it's a new day at HUD, because she said that about 8 times. So take that what you will. Again, broadband, a big focus. The promise was made that ARPA would not be clawed back to pay for the infrastructure bill portion of that.
By the way, do you plan on being at the meeting tomorrow, WCICC?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll try to make it. So there's a review on there.
Oh, that's right. Do you have anything else? Good job. Round 2 of citizen concerns. Board concerns.
I'm pretty concerned about this discussion of publications. We're kind of leaving them out there in the rural. Not that we ought to be, I don't know, maybe we should be publishing.
Is it in general,
Danbury.
nobody reads legals and papers and knows
Well,
what's going on?
I'm not-
More
I don't
people
wa-
get their news from Facebook than anywhere right now.
That's not what the code says. I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Radig at all, nor Mr. Monson. I read through them occasionally just to see what's there, but
They're hard to read.
there they are. And I guess if it's a concern, then perhaps we should be a little bit more judicious on putting it out to the 3 official papers. Is that the right word, the official publications, Pat?
Yes, and, it's not just endemic to Woodbury County. There's conversation goes on all across the state all the time.
Right, but
And what they're concerned with is that the newspapers, they're really sticking to their guns as far as publishing that. There's been some things that you can do to reduce to summary to some things, but it boils down to is how it is expensive to publish in those different newspapers, and that's the way it is across the state. So they're all facing the same issue. A lot of people are going with from their websites to Facebook, that type of social media.
Well, it doesn't.
Get the word out.
Right, and it doesn't make it any easier that we probably are looking at 3 different publishing times for each paper out there. Just a guess, or so that can be a hindrance on scheduling meetings and publications and so forth. So
It's difficult for the smaller newspapers too, because of the limited amount of time that they do publish. So it makes it harder for us to get publication out.
which is not an excuse for us not to publish, but it's
No, we publish, but what Mr. Gleiser's talking about, when you have, you're only required to do it in one publication. That's why Sioux City Journal works, is because they publish every day. So you can make that publication, but sometimes it's pretty hard to get those publications out there in those smaller towns.
Question. Sure. If we choose a paper as a county paper of record, does that mean we have to publish all of the weekly claims?
Yes, in those,
Because-
the proceedings of the board have to be published in those 3 newspapers, the official newspapers.
And the claims are very long.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I personally think, that people involved would have been happy with the press release. Simply to notice something more noticeable in the 2nd or 3rd page as opposed to the legal section that we're going to be having this discussion. That's a fair point, but I don't know if it's financially responsible to.
And what, I don't know if it's true here, but it's true across the state, is that, you get a mixed bag of people who respond, because a lot of the newspapers they won't publish a news release unless you publish in their paper. You pay to publish something.
Well, Mrs. Cameron was also mentioning that it was her opinion that we should also publish in the Whiting paper, which is why I directed the question to Mr. Widman about, do we need to publish out of county? And I guess I'm gonna say I'm hesitant to, where do we stop at that point? Do we need to go to Ida Grove for Ida County and things like that? And
Well, the Whiting paper, the Grapevine, have a list of all the towns, about 15. Smithland, Hornick, Danbury, Sloan, Salix. You get it free. So it does cover the lower portion of ours. Do you want to, I can tell you that Bryan Publishing will not put anything in there for free.
Well, there are counties that don't have newspaper within their county, and they publish outside the county.
We're not saddled with that
No.
hindrance. All right, I guess I don't see much point in continuing this conversation. I've directed Mr. Glazer to publish in future items in our official publications, and there's only so much we can do as long as we're following the law. I guess we can't be responsible for sending certified mail to every individual out there to make sure they know about an ordinance or.
We'll send an absentee request form with them.
Better not be filled out.
Just to follow up on a previous question about the ordinances, the ATV thing was an ordinance.
Oh, it was? Okay.
And in the back of materials for that agenda item, I only see a snippet that it was published in the Sioux City Journal.
Oh, good.
So just for background.
Okay. Any other board concerns? We are adjourned.